Hello, we were hoping to have Lynne Owens, Director General of the National Crime Agency, with us today. Unfortunately, she's unable to attend in person, so I've tracked her down in our office and we're here to talk to you today, Lynne. So, welcome, Lynne.
Well, I'm delighted to be with you all today, and I'm really sorry, Mandy, that it's not in person. As you'll be aware, we've seen some truly horrific events over the last few weeks, and of course the policing family, despite being very sad by the event, should feel immensely proud of their response. So it's great that on a day like today we are able to congratulate all the award winners. Of course, I wish I was there to say that in person to all of them, a bunch of very inspiring people who everybody should feel very proud of today. And of course this year is particularly special because I'd like to share my personal congratulations with Cressida Dick, an amazing milestone for national policing and law enforcement to have the first female commissioner, and of course to see Dee Collins substantively promoted in this financial year is another great achievement. So many congratulations to both of them. Hopefully people can see us aspiring and achieving at the very top of policing.
It is, it's truly inspirational times, what with yourself, you know, a little time ago, and Cress taking her post now, and we've also got the first female Chief Officer in the London Fire Service as well, which is great to see. Your story, I mean, I've known you since 1987, a fairly quiet PC at Catford as I remember, but I do remember being sharp and thinking, I think she'll do well, so I take no credit for it, but you have been brilliant, and you're blushing already, sorry, but you said about inspiring. Well, you've done that as well. Tell us a bit about your story and where it all began. I know it began at Catford, but you started in the Met, and just tell us a little bit about your story.
So I actually joined the Met in 1989, so you were 2 years early, but showing my age, I'd be retired by now if it were 1987. But yeah, 1989 I joined the Metropolitan Police Service, and contrary to perhaps some other people's career models, I had absolutely no aspiration for upward movement when I joined policing. I've loved it from day one. So the whole part of my story really, and my message to most people, is really get stuck in and do jobs that you enjoy, as you say. I was much more shy and slightly more quiet then than I am now. So there's something about the meritocracy of policing and how, regardless of people's different backgrounds, experiences, character types, if you just dig in, serve the public to the very best of your ability, are a great colleague to those you're privileged to work alongside, I think you should succeed. And of course, I know at the moment people are timid about that because of finances and changes and political changes, but actually I think policing will come through the other side of all of that, and great people will continue to succeed, like all the people you've got present here today.
So was there anything particular changed your path? Were you fairly open-minded what you wanted to do when you joined? I mean, the Met, as with many forces, has so many different opportunities there are in policing. What was it that influenced you to go through the ranks and go for promotion?
Like many others, I think, I was extremely fortunate to come across some really good early leaders. So my first inspector was a real inspiration. Now, if he were here today, he might not meet the political correctness bar, but actually it was him that first said to me, have you thought about taking your sergeant's exam? It wasn't something that I had personally planned to do. So I think it's why I feel so strongly about us supporting and empowering one another, because without his encouragement I definitely wouldn't be sitting here today.
Because I know because I know you personally, I know that you've encouraged a lot of people. You've certainly inspired a lot with the way you are, because you've never changed in this entire time, and obviously your sergeant recognised you were going to be brilliant as well, so that's great. But the other people, you've helped them, and have people helped you along that way particularly?
Yeah, like in every walk of life, I think you meet some people that you walk alongside in policing, and no matter their rank or grade, actually, you think, I really want to be a bit like them because they are really impressive. And so equally, you meet other people who are unkind or harsh or judgmental, who you think, actually, I don't want to be like them at all. And that's what I try and do even now. But because I've taken such strong support from people who've been prepared to reach out and support me and pull me up, I try and consistently do that for others. And I don't like these self-publicists who spend lots of their time talking about themselves and pushing themselves forward. For me, it's about getting the job done, serving the public to the very best of your ability. But of course, having a network of people around me that I can really rely on and who will tell me bad news as well as good news. You don't want to be surrounded by yes men and women.
Absolutely. So you started in the Met, as we've said, and then obviously you moved up within the Met. What happened next?
So actually I didn't get promoted in the Met. All my time in the Met I was a constable. I actually transferred to Kent on promotion to sergeant, and I think that's one of the messages that I would give to people. So the Met at that time had a bar on promotion, so everyone thinks it's a recent thing. Actually it wasn't. That was the same, whatever that was, 25 years ago. And Kent were advertising. Now, of course, everybody has to make personal choices. If you have a young family or other caring responsibilities, it's quite hard to move. But sometimes, if you don't feel that you're in the right place at the right time, you do sometimes have to make fairly drastic choices. So, yes, I moved to Kent, and it was at that time, really, that I decided to specialise as a detective. And of course, had I not made that choice then, I wouldn't be here now. Doing the job that I currently am. So yeah, been a proud detective for a big chunk of my service. In Kent as a senior investigating officer was probably one of the best, if not the best jobs of my career. You know, leading small teams of people, trying to support families whose loved ones have been cruelly taken and murdered. A real privilege to undertake that role.
So after Kent, what happened next?
Well, so after Kent, I moved to Surrey as a superintendent, and actually I didn't perform that role for very long before becoming a divisional commander. Again, a great role where you have a broad cross-section of responsibility, and my first time back in uniform for a number of years. So that was an interesting change. That whole ability to work with partners, and from then again some great leaders at that time in Surrey Police who encouraged me to apply from the Police National Assessment Centre. Now I should say to people who are watching, I actually applied for the equivalent of what's now the selection process is for direct entry and others when I was a constable, and I didn't succeed. Which is why I think you can take different routes through. Yeah. So successful at senior PNAC, I hadn't been successful at that more junior in my service, so never give up trying.
Keep going, I like that. So then you did come back to us in the Met.
Yeah, so came back to the Met as a Deputy Assistant Commissioner. It just felt such an enormous privilege, having been there as a constable and then to walk into what is now the old new Scotland Yard, and to put on that Deputy Assistant Commissioner's uniform. Of course, very different to a smaller county force. Just the numbers of chief officers, the size and scale of the organisation. Truly impressive individuals and specialists at all sorts of rank and position in the organisation, and then had the opportunity to be the Assistant Commissioner for Central Operations, and then extended into Specialist Ops after that. An odd choice, I thought at the time, by Paul Stevenson, on the basis that I didn't have a big public order background. But it was just after the student riots, and I know in his mind he was wondering whether the Met was as good at using intelligence as it needed to be, and actually whether some of the investigations connected to the students' protests had been in the right place. So I was able to bring that knowledge while learning huge amounts from some of the truly impressive public order specialists that there are in London.
And then, of course, you went to Surrey as chief.
Yeah, back to Surrey as chief. So that privilege of being able to run your own force. I did that for 4 years, and had a great team of people there. I still try and keep in contact with what's going on there, but it's really hard when you've owned something for that long to walk away, and you have to grow a team behind you that has the confidence to carry on ploughing forward. So whilst I keep a weather eye on them, I try not to interfere. And now, what an absolute privilege to lead the National Crime Agency.
Yeah, massive, isn't it? It's just brilliant, and such a huge role. You've taken on that.
Yeah, so obviously the National Crime Agency's responsibility is to lead the fight to cut serious and organised crime. The threat's changing. So when you and I were in Catford 28, 29 years ago, most crimes happened on the streets or in people's homes. We didn't have the level of technology we now have. We weren't so globally connected, and I think that's a real challenge for policing. How do we ensure that we support communities and support victims who live in communities when actually offenders are often disconnected? Often abroad. We've got a big international network. Some of the work we do in cyber, some of the responses to child sexual exploitation don't have their footprint. The offenders aren't necessarily based here, or they're certainly not based in close proximity to their victims. That's a real challenge for us, I think.
It's huge, yeah, absolutely huge. Would you do anything differently, do you think?
Probably lots of things.
Would you do anything differently?
there's probably lots of things along the way that I do differently. I mean, I spend a lot of time thinking about, if I did that, I wouldn't do that again. But I've not had a plan. Every single bit of career advice says, you must have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I've never had any one of those. I've just tried to do every job that I've done to the very best of my ability. I've always felt privileged to work alongside our colleagues, and I try and be the best leader to them I possibly can be. And I try and create an environment by being the person I've always been, where people can be really frank and honest with me. Do I get stuff wrong? I'm a human, so I probably get quite a lot of stuff wrong.
Well, it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really thrilled you've taken the time, because I know how busy you are. But thank you for taking the time out to speak to our winners and their families today. And I do know personally how upset you are that you can't be there, and I know you've told us that, and we really appreciate you taking the time with everything going on to speak to us today. Thanks very much.
No trouble at all, Mandy. And the reality is I wouldn't be sitting here in a job like this if it wasn't for the support of people like you. From those early days in Catford, you are one of the people that reaches out to me on social media or message on some of the down and more difficult days. And I feel really indebted to have worked alongside such amazing people like you, and that's what makes the police service of this country just so very special.
Well, you're too kind, but I think the thing we've taken from it is that team really work together, pull together and make the very best. Lynne, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.